Hello, everyone. It's William and Andrew here.
Howdy.
I hope you're all doing really well. So yesterday, did a demo. Andrew did an awesome demo on how to color polymer clay, and we don't know what happened. We were out of storage on our side of things, so we think maybe that was something to do with it. And anyway, the video went away. So
I was also messing around with stuff I probably shouldn't have.
so we went over his settings, we made some more storage room, and hopefully this one's here to stay, back to how we have been. But thank you all for joining in. Those of you who are here with us today, we really appreciate it. Please, if you could, give us those thumbs up and those likes and those loves. All the algorithms love those. And this doesn't come from me. This comes from all the people who have a lot more followers and a lot more, oomph on YouTube and Facebook than us. But we're thankful for all of you out there. And if you help us, give us those thumbs ups and those likes and those comments. Comment a lot. Say lots of things. That all helps. Nice things, Andrew says. So let's see who's with us. Cindy is the first one that came in today. Hello, Cindy. Thank you for joining us today. Hello, Marianne. AG Beat fam out there. Harry is with us. Susan, Norma is joining us. We have Diane. Diane's try again. I don't know what that means, but I hope you're here. It looks like you're here.
Diane.
That was Diane Heskin right there. Cuddling up to cats, says Marianne, because it's only -12 here. Oh, it is 50 degrees today. It's supposed to be almost 70 here tomorrow. Nice. So that's nice. It is rainy and dreary, but we'll see. This might be one of the first years that my birthday is actually a nice day.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. Usually on my birthday, it's like the coldest, rainiest, wettest, nastiest day of the year.
You have to work anyway.
Andrew's putting me to work on my birthday, y'all. On my birthday. And my whole birthday weekend.
What else are you going to do?
What else? Oh, I wouldn't take it easy or anything like that.
No.
With my Barnaby and Gilbert. Let's see here. Anita is with us. Hello. Hi, guys. She says, thanks to an ice storm in my part of Michigan, I can actually join the live. Well, it's good to see you here, Anita. It's been a while. Let's see who else is out there. Cindy is with us. Anita, Tony, our friend Tony, is with us too.
Anita works, and Tony both work with polymer clay.
So I am streaming this into our polymer clay club, polymer clay group on Facebook that we started years ago. So that might be why some of these names are popping up, that maybe you're seeing it in that group.
We're going to hopefully reboot it and start it over.
Yeah, we'd like to get that up and going again because so many people are interested in polymer clay. We were ahead of the wave, I think, a little bit, and then we just died out over the pandemic. But we're coming back, y'all. We're coming back hard.
Well, something that has happened locally is that there was a really thriving and robust polymer clay guild in Pittsburgh, but they're disbanding and have been in the process of
yeah, we're losing our polymer clay guild in Pittsburgh, which is super sad.
It's super sad. So somebody has to kind of step up and fill that vacancy, I guess.
Just add the more there. We'll do it. We'll handle it for now.
Help.
We'll do our best anyway. We're not always the greatest, but we're always willing to fill in and help and, keep creativity alive as much as we can.
Well, I tried to get contemporary craft to pick it up, but I think they've also got a lot of stuff going on their plates. So adding one more thing was
we're not the same as Pittsburgh here in little Ligonier, but
little old Ligonier.
But we're gonna do our polymer clay best. So we'll see what we can do. Hello, Julie. Thanks for tuning in.
Maybe we can do like a sisterhood of the traveling pants and like go around to different places. So if they're,
Andrew's gonna lead that.
Maybe one day it'll be in Ligonier. Maybe one day it'll be in Johnstown.
Andrew's gonna be leading the pack.
Maybe one day they'll be in Pittsburgh.
We'll see.
I may know a couple people with spaces.
That's right. Diane says, blowing something fierce. Internet is iffy. Well, hopefully you can hang in there.
Hang in there.
Marianne says it is sunny though, so sunny's good, right? That gives you a good feeling. Hello, dudes. Looking good, says Susan Baker. Thank you, Susan, for joining us today. Oops, sorry, my comments jumped. Let me catch up. Hello, Paula. Thank you for joining us. Harry says it's 32 now here with drizzle. Yeah, we're getting down there. We're slowly crashing downward at 49, a whole low 49. 74 in Central Kentucky. Nice, Norma. Hello. Terry is joining us. Hello, Terry. I don't recognize your name, at least recently. So welcome. Thank you for joining in today. We have Susan saying it's 47 in Central Cali. Going to be a rainy week in Modesto. Bonnie says Minnesota is snowing to beat the band. Snowing to beat the band. What's that mean?
A lot.
Is that what that means? I've never heard that expression before.
That means a lot.
To beat the band. Huh. That's interesting. Anita says, I do indeed work with Polymer Clay. And yes, that group is where I received the notification. See, we don't stream into that group much because it's been kind of like snooze fest over there. So we haven't done much with it. So I figured we're talking about Polymer Clay. No better time than now, right? Tony says, I have a Polymer Clay guild in Westmoreland County that meets at the Greensburg Art Center.
Oh, I didn't know
I didn't know that. I don't know. No one in the Pittsburgh one told us about that either.
Secret.
I know. Having secrets. Is that one you started, Tony?
I don't know.
Susan, I tried to order trunk show items by comments and never heard anything. Maybe sold out. I went through all of them and I invoiced everyone. I can't look right now. As we always say, if you have any questions about anything we do, please email us. If you don't receive any reply by email, then try messaging us. I can't look here while I'm on the camera.
But
I feel like I had a bag for you set aside. But if we didn't get your shipping address, if you never sent your shipping address, we may not have been able to send you an invoice. So there may be something I may have written to you to get your shipping address or something. I feel like we did have a bag for you though. But yeah, send us an email. It's right here. I added that to the menu bar.
Oh, it doesn't show it. You're backwards.
I'm backwards on my camera. No one. You're probably all over there thinking I'm crazy. Now I got to point over here because I'm flipped around, but my banner is not. How crazy is that? See, over here is where it says info for me, but I'm watching on another screen and it's over here now. I've been pointing the wrong place all this time, y'all.
Not all the time. No, sometimes it works out.
It's like right here. It's in the center that it works out. Because I always flip my screen so that I can see my right hand raised on my right side, but it's off for you all. Okay, well, anyway. So, Susan, I think there was something, but I don't think we heard back from you or didn't get the invoice paid, so I don't know.
Check your spam folder.
Make sure you check your spam. I'm going to check my spam, too, later today. I don't think you were doing it wrong, so maybe I was doing it wrong. I don't think so because I think we got it. I'm pretty sure. I remember. I feel like I remember an invoice. Hopefully, of course, it could have all sold out. That's another thing. I don't know, but I can't check right now. Marianne says expanding the empire again.
I've been looking.
Don't even talk about that. We're not even. She's just talking about the Polymer Clay Guild. We're not talking about buildings again. Building? No, we're not talking about.
There was a space that was in kind of the more central area of Johnstown, so it would have a little bit more foot traffic. And there are two prospective buildings that are actually really good, and they're kind of affordably priced for what they are.
They're good in the pictures. We have not gone to see anything. I don't know what the roofs are.
I haven't looked because he told me not to.
There are no buildings to purchase this year.
You never know.
That's coming out of your pay if that's the way it's gonna work.
Okay.
Whatever you can make, you gotta make it.
Okay. Challenge accepted.
You still haven't paid for the one you've got now.
Which one?
The one you're not using yet.
Oh.
Hello, June. Thanks for tuning in.
Don't kill my energy.
Your spirit. Hello, Terry says, met you at Beat Fest with Amy K. I remember. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's when I got COVID.
I know. We did get COVID there.
Hopefully you didn't get COVID.
Hopefully you didn't after that. We did. Right after that, we ended up with COVID. But it was nice to meet you while we didn't have COVID. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for tuning in. California's in the 40s. Let's see. Just skipping things. It is Tony. Tony did start it, she said. And here's the group there. We'll have to join that later. Check it out. Down to 59, and the sun came out for Susan today.
Oh, good.
Let's see. Oops, sorry. Oh, Barnaby. Ow. Barnaby's tearing up my pants.
He says, land the plane.
I'm just saying hi to everybody. All your fans out here, Barnaby.
Uh-huh.
Donna says, I was thinking of rolling clay beads while I was rolling out my... What's that word? Maybe pierogi? Pierogies today? Maybe. That would make sense. You're near us, right? Maybe you make pierogies. Let's see here. Michelle just received your beautiful check beads. Thank you. Barb has been working hard to catch up.
Oh, good.
She called me today and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing at this point. No, she has it all under control, but she's starting to feel the pressure. I said, Barb, just ship what you can ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's getting every day when some of y'all order more, which we love. But Barb, she keeps adding to those bags. She's like, you've only charged once for shipping, and these are very heavy now. I said, well, we'll eat that shipping, but you got to start.
Watch out.
You got it. I know. Barnaby's kissing the camera post here. So we're going to be shipping a lot starting, I think, Friday. That's when Barb's back. Let's see here.
Because she worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes, Barb is only in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And she gets all the shipping done Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's a lot of work.
And Monday was kind of a dud in one way because it was a postal holiday.
Anita says, maybe you can be the guest artist at a future Mighty Mitten adventure. I don't know what Mighty Mitten is. Do you know that, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll have to look up.
Send us the info.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that.
Or if I do, I don't know it by name.
Yeah. Michelle says, I like when you randomly point everywhere. It wasn't supposed to be random. I was on my screen. I'm like actually pointing at where I'm trying to tell you, but that's not the right place. Who knows?
Right.
I know now.
I wonder sometimes why you were pointing randomly.
He never told me. He's like, why are you pointing in the wrong spot? It's right next to it.
It's fine. I figured it's like that game where you have to like use the hand.
I didn't realize it doesn't mirror for everyone else. I never noticed that. It only mirrors for me. It would have been right if it mirrored for everybody.
He does a weird setting on his phone, and that's why.
I use the mirrored setting. So when I raise my right hand, it works. But I don't know how much that even matters now because it's in the wrong place.
Well,
and when I'm pointing this way, I'm saying your comments are over here. They're not over here. They're over here. Anyway, Marianne says, yes, but where will the money come from this time? I know, Marianne.
Where there's a will, there's a way. People always doubt me.
We're not doubting you, Andrew. We're not doubting you.
We're just can make it happen.
That's not.
He's gonna be like, slow down
the
challenges.
Slow down that roll.
Because he's gonna. Next thing you know,
that roll. That roll
talking
needs
to
a little.
The realtor.
That round wheel needs a little chop taken out of it.
What is it?
Got to slow that round wheel down.
What wheel?
Your rolling wheel. Your free rolling wheels.
William.
We need a little bit of a in that.
You have to spend money to make money.
Uh-huh.
You have to buy buildings to make an empire.
Uh-huh.
Well,
my husband tells me to stop looking at adoptable dogs, says Michelle. We might be looking at cats.
What do you think about that,
what do you think
Barnaby?
About that, Barnaby?
He's like, go ahead. Go ahead.
See, Bonnie's saying, put it out in the universe, Andrew. A new building could happen.
Well, I think one of my goals, and this was something that we've been talking about, is finding a forever home for Allegory Gallery. And, it really just depends on what becomes available and also what we kind of want to do with our lives, Like if William is serious about moving to the country, and being in the woods, then we don't necessarily have to be within walking distance to our store. So instead of paying rent here in Ligonier,
how he tries to entice me by what I want.
It's called compromise, right? So if instead of paying rent, we could put that money towards a mortgage, and then we would actually have an asset that we own. We've spent over $130,000 in rent since we've been in business.
Could have owned that building.
So, I mean, we were not financially ready to own a building when we first started. But and who knows?
Yep. Susan says, my Butterball kitty Phil had a good vet checkup, although he is developing some gingivitis. I'll have to watch that.
Gilbert has gingivitis.
We think Gilbert does. We bought him a little baby toothbrush and some cat toothpaste.
He likes to eat it, but he doesn't like to brush his teeth.
He doesn't mind. He sits much nicer than most cats would to have something shoved in their mouth and go and vibrate it on. So
he doesn't have a choice.
Right. Anita says, I'll send you the info later. Nice. Tony says, are we heading out to Bead Fest again this year?
Maybe.
We're thinking about it. We have a lot to do.
So there's a lot of things happening in the behind the scenes here. One of the things that we've been talking about doing is doing more shows in Pennsylvania. So we've been talking about doing a show out at the old Philly, Greater Philly Expo Center this spring. And then there's one that if we can squeeze in, we're going to try to do it in Pittsburgh this weekend.
My birthday weekend, this weekend. We'll see what happens.
But I haven't heard back. But of course, I just emailed them. Yeah. But I didn't know about it before.
No, we hadn't heard about it. Hello, Suzanne. Thank you for tuning in today. Oops. Let's see. Whoop, Barnaby.
He's having a coughing fit.
Susan said the vet suggested that toothbrush, but we'd have to send him a video of our toothbrush attempts with Phil. Yeah, Barnaby and Gilbert. Well, Barnaby hasn't had his toothbrush really. Gilbert, though, he's pretty good with it. We just hold him upside down, and he loves the toothpaste, so he just licks it like it's a treat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Barnaby doesn't like it.
No, but he doesn't. His teeth are pretty clean.
Mm-hmm. It's like Paolo. His teeth were not very good.
Paolo had teeth pulled and things, but
Bat had perfect teeth the whole time.
Yeah, she never had a tooth problem at all, and they were brother and sister.
I don't know how that is. Maybe if they drink more water, because Babette always used to drink from the sink.
Yeah.
And then Paolo, he drank a little bit, but more ended up on his chest than in his mouth. I think.
True. He's a cutie. Okay, so today we're going to chat a little bit like we are now. That's what we always do, hang out and chat, right? I like it. And then we're going to get into this polymer clay demo that Andrew has for you. And we might switch off in between, I don't know. But the big thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm going to try to do this. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I can do this or not. Can I do this? Does it work? No. How do I do this?
See, y'all, it's not just me.
I know. I think, though.
Do you drag it?
No, I don't know. I think if I do this, though, I think you can't. Sorry, everybody. I thought you could hear me. I guess you can't hear me when I do that. So,
just talk about it and then show it.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. So those earrings, the pictures are much bigger than I thought they were. So I'm going to have to, hopefully you'll be able to see them. But I've been working with our teacher, Jen Tucson, and we are starting to record some tutorials. My goal is to have a new tutorial every week on YouTube. They will only broadcast on YouTube. So if you're not signed up to our YouTube channel, we hope you'll join us there. It's youtube.com/allegory gallery. And I'm gonna put those pictures back up. But the first one I think is going to debut hopefully this weekend. And my idea for this is that we want to give you some kind of kind of a weekend jumpstart, or a weekend creativity. I haven't come up with a name for it, obviously. But what we want to do is every probably Friday night or Saturday morning, something like that, I want to hopefully debut a new tutorial that's done with Jen or from us, as we go on. And hopefully, if you wanted something to do that weekend, you'll have something to look forward to every weekend as kind of a new little just inspiration, if nothing else. Now, these tutorials are not going to necessarily have kits that you have to buy from us. These are some of those. There will be things you can buy from us if you want to, but these are going to be part of that. We keep talking about all that free content that we put out there for you, and that's why we ask for your likes and your thumbs up here on YouTube. Things like that help YouTube know that we are something to share. So if they see you liking us and liking our posts and watching our ads and doing all this stuff, watching our videos for a long time, they know they already know if the next person who logs on to YouTube looks like you as far as demographics are concerned. And if they do, they will show us to them maybe. So that's why when you hit the like and you comment with us and you watch our videos for a long time, YouTube starts to learn that you are interested in us, and that's good for YouTube because YouTube then takes that data and says, oh, this person who liked this video and likes this kind of thing, and they search for this on Google, they like watching Allegory Gallery. So this person who also liked this video and searches for like things on Google might also like Allegory Gallery. That's how that kind of all works in a very simplified way. And so when we ask you for hearts and likes and thumbs ups and subscriptions, that's why. So that when other new people may come on, new people to us, and they see, YouTube sees that you like this, they might go over there and say, hey, new person, you might like them. Come on over and take a look. So this is part of the free content stuff. We're not going to have a lot to sell during these videos. Some of these things we do carry in store. Some of these things, most of the stuff that Jen works with, especially when she does wire wrapping, she makes herself. So she's going to show you, particularly in this earring video that I had up, she's going to show you how to make that completely, pretty much from scratch. You're going to make the ear wires, you're going to make the design. All you need is a little check glass bead like she used, and you're going to be able to make those pretty much from scratch, from just 20 gauge copper wire. So that's going to be the first one, and I'm hoping to debut that on Saturday morning. That's as long as I haven't edited a video, folks, because we keep doing these lives all the time. I have not edited a video in centuries, it feels like. So it's really been like 3 years, I think. So it's one of those things that that as long as the editing goes through and all the technology works okay, hopefully Saturday morning I will have a preview to put up on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch that that demo and tutorial from Jen. We actually filmed 2 last night, so I'm going to show you both of the pictures here. You obviously cannot hear me when I put the pictures up, and I don't know of any other way to put the pictures up unless, ooh, what about that? Extra camera, video file, share screen, slides. I didn't make any slides. So I don't even know how to do that. So I'm going to go away. You're not going to be able to hear me, but I'm going to show you these photos the best that I can. Like I said, they're a little bit big because I didn't realize what size they were before I put them up here. I thought they'd show okay.
I'll post the pictures after the video.
Yeah, I'll post the pictures after and let you all know that this stuff is coming up also on our timeline. But I'm going to go away for a little bit, and I'm going to show you these pictures.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Did y'all like that?
Okay. Yeah. How'd you like that? So the first ones are a wire wrapping project. And the second ones are kind of a macrame-ish project. They're using some macrame knots to make that. But that's another pair of earrings that are done with fiber. We're going to be using waxed linen in that one. And they're tied up and then they're trimmed, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope you will enjoy those. Please, it's not going to be us going live. So I do hope that when those come out, you'll watch those and enjoy those and give those thumbs ups too, because that really helps.
And she's going to be showing earrings, but if you wanted to use them for other things like links in a chain or for a pendant, you just adjust your scale.
Yeah, she's going to be showing you a lot of techniques. So like I said, those wire wrapped earrings, those are, excuse me, the wire wrapped earrings, those are all from scratch. So everything it took to make those, including the ear wire, she's going to show you how to make ear wire. She's going to do little jump rings. There's little infinity link kind of things. So you're going to get to see how she makes all of those. So it's not just to make that. You can use this technique to make a lot of different things. And that earring could easily be a pendant. You can make it in a larger size. It can grow. So you're going to learn a lot, I think, with those. Bonnie says only on YouTube. Yes, Bonnie, only on YouTube. And the reason for that, in the way I'm looking at things, is that this is free content for you, but on YouTube, we can put ads on it that we get a little kickback if you watch the ads. So that's our kind of way of recouping some of that money. Facebook doesn't allow us to do that. And so since it's free content, we want to try and make a little bit of a passive income kind of on it. So they will only be on YouTube because YouTube allows us to add ads to our videos.
Also, we want to grow our YouTube channel.
Yeah. And not that we don't want to grow Facebook, but a lot of you, we have 8,000 some people following us on Facebook. Thank you all. And we only have about 1,150 following us on YouTube. So for some little extra incentive to get people over there, we're going to be doing these there. And hopefully that'll help grow that and help convince some people else to subscribe to us over there so we can continue growing that, because there is money to be made on YouTube.
I want to be like that 8-year-old that gets $27 million for opening packages.
Yeah. So YouTube has a potential for us, if we can grow that channel, to give us a passive income.
Imagine how many buildings I could have if
I know, if you just had a great YouTube channel. I just watched a YouTube person that I normally watch, and they now they grew their channel over the last few years, and they now make like $1 million just off of the ad money.
What?
It's insane. I don't know if we'll ever
Are
get
they
there.
one of those nickety doodah people?
Nope, not at all. It's Catherine.
Oh, the one that does the laundry.
Yeah, she's now changed her whole thing again. This is like the fourth time she's changed her meaning of her YouTube channel, but she keeps raking in that money, y'all.
She did.
Now she's just talking about what makes her happy in life. She bought a new house. She's showing her remodeling some of her house, but it's mostly now her YouTube channel is all about how she's going to try to give herself her best life. And she makes lots and lots of money just on the ad revenue.
William made me watch this video of her folding laundry, and I was like, we could do this in real time. We don't have to watch this on YouTube.
She probably made more on views on that video of her folding laundry than we make in a month.
I know, right?
So who's the crazy one? I don't know. Maybe I need to show y'all folding some laundry.
Yeah, do it.
He's like, do it. Get the laundry done.
I've got some dirty clothes.
They're not dirty. They're clean. I washed them.
Oh, nice.
So that's why it's only going to be on YouTube. And I know that's going to disappoint some people on Facebook, but YouTube also allows us to record at 4K. And I do record these tutorials now in 4K. Facebook will not publish 4K. So higher resolution, chances for us to make some money, and
don't worry, we'll have some Facebook.
There's always the live is not going anywhere for one thing.
Also, we did those travel logs, and those were only on Facebook. So
yep, there's always we always try and give you all good content.
A little there.
Right.
You don't want to leave anybody out who wants to give us money.
So those are the two beginning projects. I'm going to work on the wire wrapped earrings first. That's going to be the debut new tutorial thing, and we're going to work on that. I'm going to probably work on some of that actually while Andrew's doing his tutorial with you today. I'm going to be processing some of that. I left some of my equipment here, so I couldn't do it during the day, but I didn't have time because you know what I did today? I took pictures of the African glass beads that we sold on our live last week. I think it was last week. And got those into the online store. So if you missed out on them,
or you don't like to claim from the live
videos, you can now purchase what is available in the online store. And there's still a lot of them available. Many of the higher end, they were like $21. Many of those strands did sell. There's still some of the green ones and some of the twisted rectangles. Those are available. The rest of them all have sold out. But I think there's at least one of all of the other strands, except the multicolor ones, because the people got those like crazy.
I think I'll show on my Instagram, Andrew Thornton Artist, what I picked out for myself.
Okay. So if you're not following Andrew Thornton Artist on Instagram, check that out. Make sure you go follow him.
I try to post different stuff than I do to Facebook.
Yeah. So you can check that out. And yeah, so that's what I did today. I'm going to be editing some video tonight, hopefully, and get that ready for Saturday's debut. I'm going to try and debut that Saturday morning. I'm going to schedule it, I think, so that it just debuts on its own. I don't even have to do it once it's uploaded.
Do they have that premiere thing?
They do have a premiere, and you're supposed to be watching with people when you do a premiere. That's the idea.
You're not going to do it.
Yeah, if it's morning. Well, we may be at a show. Who knows?
I might be at a show.
Who knows?
It's a small show.
So. Julie says, I emailed you to see if you had any more pearl sticks, but I didn't hear back. I don't remember seeing your email. I'll check my spam again, but try sending me the email again just to make sure. And make sure it's all spelled right, because
info@allegorygallery.com.
It's up here somewhere. So yeah, go ahead and send that back, or send it again just in case. So I emailed through the website. That's weird. I'll have to look. It could have still gone to spam or got buried.
Especially if you have a business email.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in the stick pearls. There were some of I think we did lots of 10 or 12 of the stick pearls. I think there were some of those left. If you're talking about the short strands, the whole short strands of them, there were only 3 and those all sold out. But if you're talking about the little tiny ones, I think I have 1 strand of the little tiny ones left. It was either lot 6 or 7, I believe, for $60 or $70, and some of the bags of the 10 or 12.
Just email us and then I can look also, because sometimes I keep things.
Yeah. So send us an email. So got the African glass into the online store. I have to see what sapphires Andrew might let go of or not let go of.
To upload them in the store?
To put them in the online store.
We'll see.
I did not put the bronze stamps in the online store because Andrew's bronzite stamps in the online store because Andrew's still going to be working with those. So if you want any of those, you can still claim them by sending us an email.
You don't get a discount.
You don't get the discount though that we give, usually the first day of the sale. And so
unless we forget,
then everybody gets the discount all the time.
Or
no discount ever.
You get a discount.
No discount ever, right? Barnaby gets a discount. Okay, so that was that. That's my information pretty much to tell you. So I'm going to flip the camera around. I think Andrew's ready to go.
Sure.
Close enough. And he's going to show you some stuff. I'm going to bake some stuff for him while he's showing you some more stuff. And then he's going to be done with the baking and he's going to show you some more stuff. He's got a lot to show you.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll play it by ear.
We'll play it by ear.
Some of y'all have seen this already.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend as much or...
Of course, we got a lot of new people today.
So we'll see. I mean, I'll try to do a good job regardless.
Yeah. So if you watched this yesterday, it might be a lot of the same information because that's the broadcast that got deleted. Raptured maybe. Yeah, is the better word. So if you did watch yesterday, there may be some new information. You may just want to get a refresher from yesterday to make sure it's in there good, right? Or you can shut it off. Come back to it later if you want to. But Bonnie says, I wish you could show the baking process.
I mean, then you stick in the oven.
Yeah, literally, you open the oven, put it in for whatever the packaging tells you to do. Close it up. Maybe
you
make a little tent.
Watch the oven for 15 to 30
Maybe put
minutes.
A little tent over it with aluminum foil. But
yeah, it's not exciting.
No, and there's really that's it.
Nothing like happens inside the oven.
You measure the thickness, you follow the directions on your package of whatever brand you buy, and put it in the oven.
There are different ways that you can do stuff where you can cure the polymer clay in other ways. But for what we're doing, that's not necessarily beneficial.
Okay. There you go.
Because you can, in theory, you can use a heat gun. The problem with the heat gun is it's hard to control the temperature, and you can easily scorch stuff. And sometimes the outside will be cooked, but then the inside will be raw.
No one likes a raw inside. It's like a cookie or a cake. You don't want that.
The first time William made me dinner, he made the chicken and it was raw on the inside. And I think he did that on purpose so that I
don't remember that at all.
I do, because then I started cooking more.
And I don't know why, because chicken wouldn't be something I would pick to cook right away. Oh, well.
Well.
I don't remember that at all, y'all.
Well, I do, because I was trying to be polite and not get dumped, but also not get the salmonella.
Apparently, I ate it and was fine.
I don't think you did. I think we ended up having to reheat it. Oh, well.
I don't know. Don't remember that.
15 years ago. It's fine.
It's too far away. All right, everyone. I'm going to flip this around since he's already started about talking about polymer clay. Get him over here.
Yeah.
Flip this around and get this situated a little bit. I think I have a full battery. I started with a full battery anyway. Hi, Barn. Let's camera flip.
Yeah, the reason why I'm not on the video is that because
What? They just added all these cameras. Wonder which camera. Back camera?
Like spy camera?
But it might actually, if we get the right camera, it might. Ooh, that's 2. It's not that camera, y'all. Sorry. This is all new, everybody.
What you doing? Just click the back camera.
No, but this telephoto, now we can get close.
No.
Except it's telephoto, so now they show everything.
Great.
But we can now get really close, I think. They finally implemented that.
That's good.
Hey, y'all. Except now you can see my feet.
Some people pay money.
So we're going to do it this way. And I think, look, we can get that's zooming in really nice. Barnaby, okay, you got to get down if you two are playing.
All right.
Okay, let me move out of the way. I'm going to go get my other computer and sit at my other desk.
The cats,
they're congregating around us today. They want to spend time with their daddies.
All right. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to class today. I hope you all are doing well and that you're having a happy hump day. Words that I never thought I would be saying. Tony says, I put mine on a tile and sent a piece of aluminum foil over it. Works great. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about that yesterday, or whatever day it was that the video disappeared. And I'll kind of go through some basics again, so that in case you missed the first video where we showed the stamps, then you can kind of get caught up. And I'll just go really quick. So I'll do the first one kind of slow. We'll start off nice and easy. And then how does that Proud Mary song go?
Huh?
Where Tina Turner's like, we're going to start off nice and easy. And then we're going to do something. Anyways, free association Wednesday, I guess, is what it is. All right. So Marianne says, depends upon what you mean by hump. Well, that's what some people call Wednesdays. They call it hump day because it's like in the middle of the work week. But there's also a lovely video that Alanis Morissette did as like an April Fool's joke where she did her rendition of that Black Eyed Peas song. And I think about that often. It takes up space in my head rent-free. All right, so I have a lighter color clay. During the tutorial that I did on Monday, I used a blue clay. And today I'm going to use this pearl colored clay. Now, one thing that I should mention is that this clay that I'm using is super old. And one of the other things about this clay is I found that pearlescent clays are sometimes a little bit trickier because they have more inclusions like that pearlescent powder. And so sometimes they're a little bit stiffer. So one of the key important things to getting polymer clay to work and work well for you is to use a clay that's been fully conditioned. So that means working it until it's nice and smooth and that all of the plasticizers is evenly distributed throughout, and there isn't a lot of crumbling. Now, this is not to say that there aren't some techniques that you can use that incorporate crumbly dry clay. There's a lot of cool things that you can use with it. But for the most part, if you want to set yourself up for success, the best thing to do is to condition your clay and make sure that it's nice and evenly worked so that all of the plasticizers are evenly distributed and it's nice and smooth. All right. So I'm working on a piece of tempered glass, which is to protect William's desk. Polymer clay can sometimes eat away things or make a mess. If you ever have a problem where, say, your hands get messy or a work surface gets messy and you need to clean it off, you can use baby wipes. They have alcohol in them, and that will help clean the surface and get some of that residue. So I've been working this clay for, it feels like forever. And I don't know if it's because it's cooler than the other day that we did it, but I found that this is a little bit stiffer of a clay. And it's the Sculpey 3, but like I said, this is probably um, uh, probably 12 years old or so. And white clay, generally speaking, or kind of this pearlescent color clay, is going to look, what's a polite way of saying dirty? So I have cats. I love my cats more than clay. So I just kind of assume that there's things that's going to happen to the clay. A trick that Christy Friesen taught me is to take a little bit of the granite, which has a little bit of these little if you know that you're in an area that you can't control your environment, sometimes it's important to kind of embrace the fact that it to your lighter clays. If there are inclusions that you pick up, say from wearing blue jeans, or a sweater that has dark colored fibers, and that gets into it, will look intentional and not like an accident. So that's one way that you can kind of skirt around that. So I've added just a pinch of that, and I don't know if you can, if it shows up on the camera or not, but there are little bits of inclusions that I've incorporated. Now, if you see anything that's kind of too big, you can always pick it out of the clay and put it off to the side. And that can also be beneficial to making sure that your project doesn't look messy. All right, so I'm going to kind of precisely eyeball this again, and then just cut these down to size, and then roll these out into little balls. And then we're going to do what we did the other day, and show what it's like to use those stamps. And then I'm going to have William bake these while I'm showing some of the techniques on the other clay that was pre-baked before we started, so that you can kind of see what it looks like on different clay colors. And I was going to do a sample on a darker clay also, because I think that's important also if you are working with a darker clay and want to add, if you know, instead of working on a light bodied clay, to work on a darker clay. All right. So this is a pearlescent clay, and I mixed a tiny little bit of that granite in there, and that's going to give you a little bit of those speckles, plus whatever has been picked up from the desk. And I'm just rolling these out, and I'm gonna only make a couple samples really. All right, so in the first video that I showed, I rolled out my polymer clay and I talked about the importance of conditioning the clay. And then also I talked about what we're going to use for resist. This is cornstarch. I have a very soft tip, kind of bushy brush, and that's what I'm going to use to apply that to my stamp. And if you didn't see this, the stamps, they're bronzite, which is a stone that have all been hand carved. I'm gonna pick a different one. I want to get the one. I like a bird, I think. I keep picking all the portrait ones. Where are the bird ones? Put a bird on it. Now, also, I want to remind people that if you're not into doing polymer clay or metal clay, or using these for wax, or for whatever, you can still use these as beads. So if you're not into it, you can still have this really cool bead and it's still cool. All right, so this is some kind of little dragon creature. William said that it was called Ozzy. We looked it up from Babylon and the Ishtar Gate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly take this and tap this down onto the surface of the stamp and then kind of knock it a little bit so it's not too much. And then since I'm going to give this a little bit of a roll so that it's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to press this into the surface of the stamp. And normally I will press a little bit deeper, but since I'm going to do a surface treatment demo, I'm going to try to not push it too deep because sometimes those undercuts are kind of a pain in the butt. So what do you think about that? So I'm going to make a couple of these. If you are interested, you can watch that video, and it's TB22 is that stamp, in case you were curious. And I'm just going to make a couple of them real fast so that William can pop these in the oven, and then we can have a different background for, so you can see what it actually looks like in real time and not just me theoretically discussing how the colors will react to different clay colors. Because sometimes, it's better to see stuff than just to hear me talk about stuff. And again, we're not at the cottage, so I don't have my full setup for polymer clay. So it's kind of stuff that I've found around the house that I'm working on. So, yeah. Now, another thing that I was going to show you real quick, because I think it's useful information to have, is if you want, and this doesn't have anything to do with adding color to clay, but I think is important, is I've got some wire, and this is, I think, 24 gauge brass wire. You want to look for a wire that's not coated, because that can sometimes get scorched in the oven and make a bad smell. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just making a wire wrap loop, and this is probably way too long, but that's all right. And I'm just doing it kind of rough and loose. I'm not really paying too much attention to making sure that it's nice and smooth and coiled nicely, because you're not actually going to see this part. But it's important that it gives something for the clay to kind of grab onto. So if you have a pin and you just stick it directly into your clay, guess what will happen? If you pull it, it will come right out. So one of the important things to do is kind of create some zigzags. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything like super fancy. But anything that if you pull it, it will, it will kind of grip in there. And you can even do a loop if you don't want to cut the wire. And this looks terrible, but you're not actually going to see that shape underneath. So it is nice to have it somewhat smooth so that if you do have to kind of compress it, it's not going to like stick out the back or stick out the front. So what I've got here is I've got that roll of polymer clay, or that ball of polymer clay. I'm going to dust my mold and my stamp. I'm going to actually roll this up to be a little bit more of an oval shape, so it conforms to that a little bit, and then press it out. Now I'm not going to press it too deep, because if I press it too deep, what's going to happen is that it's going to be too thin and I'm not going to have any clearance for my wire. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and make sure that there's enough clearance, which is kind of dangerous. So I'm going to fold this over so that it's even more it's a shorter kind of thing. This looks terrible, y'all. It looks like somebody chewed it up with their teeth. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slip it in there. I'm going to squeeze this down a little bit and slip it in there. And I actually should have tested out to see which way was the top. Okay, the top is on this side, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to use my pliers to help guide this in. I'm just going to wiggle this back and forth. And you may notice I've got my stamp still impressed, and that's so that I don't accidentally squash it while I'm working with this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take something like this stylus, which is not really a stylus, but I usually use an African porcupine quill. But we need, ooh, this is sticky, y'all. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to use this side. And then I'm just going to heal up those little, wherever there's kind of a fissure left from the clay going in. And when this happens is you're going to bake this in there and it's going to have a full contact, and you're going to have that so that it won't pull out after it's baked. So I thought it was important to kind of show that, so that if you do want to make pendants, and this is maybe not the slickest because I could have probably embedded that a little bit more, and I could probably do that. And also, if I want, I can take a little bit of clay like this, like a little pinch. Teresa says, joining in, got your magazine. Oh, thank you for your support. Ornament Magazine really likes to hear from its readers. So if you saw this, if you didn't know about this, I was recently, some of my art was featured in this issue of Ornament Magazine. And you can reach out to them and write letters to the editor. And if you say, hey, I really love this article, I'm a huge fan of Andrew's work and I can't wait to see what he's going to do next, or something along those lines, it would be a win-win. So not only do they have content to publish in their magazine, but it also helps me out in my burgeoning art jewelry career. So you can take this and make that in a little coil and just smooth this in. And if you are worried that it's not going to stick, you can always put a little dab of liquid polymer as kind of like a glue. I don't think we're going to have a problem. This clay is a little bit it's a little bit dry because it is a pearlescent kind of clay. And sometimes when that clay gets old, it gets where it's a little bit drier to use. So if you use a clay that's super sticky, that's a little bit better at blending. So sometimes if I have something where I need to blend something really well, I'll take the clay and I'll really work it, and I'm only working a small amount until it's nice and squishy and sticky. And that's like if you have a crack, like sometimes when you take things out of the oven and something's not fully conditioned, or if there's a thermal shock or there's a lot of different ways that a crack can appear. If you want to fill that crack, all you have to do is just take a little bit of clay and work it back and forth like this until it's really sticky. And then you just smear it into those holes and or those cracks, and you can fill the crack like that. Donna says, do you think the oil from your hands help? Not necessarily, um, but it's not as detrimental as some for some clay bodies. Like with metal clay, if you introduce a bunch of moisture to it, it can break down the polymer clay, and it can cause it to become like it will make kind of like a what's called a slip or kind of a slurry, and the oils from your hands and the moisture from your hands can cause it to kind of break down. So whenever I'm working with like metal clay, for example, I'll use a product called Glove in the Bottle, and that'll help prevent that, and keep it from getting too if you're working dirty, you know. So, anyways, that's something you can do to add a little bail to your little creations if you want. I think it's handy. Carla says, "Hey, Andrew, what you been doing? I know you hate this." Carla, she knows that when you watch a video in the middle and then you ask what the person's doing, it can kind of sometimes throw people off. But since I'm not on a time budget, she's used to watching when we're on a time crunch, and so I can't stop and like answer questions leisurely. And now I can do whatever I want. So today, William talked about some upcoming video drops that are going to be for Allegory Gallery. And
post on Facebook about it now, so make sure you check that out.
I don't know if you can hear William in the background, but he just said that he's going to make a post on Facebook about it. So you can check it out. And then today we're going to be talking about adding color to polymer clay. And I wanted to make some samples in a lighter color clay so that you could see some of the more dramatic effects that you can get from with incorporating color. So we're gonna have this kind of a play-a-thon where we're just gonna show a bunch of different products and techniques, and hopefully you all like it. If you don't, then oh well. I mean, I guess I'll try to do better, but you know, it is what it is. I think sometimes it's best to experience it for yourself, and then if you learn sometimes a little bit easier and better through touching it with your hands. But I know that that's not always an option for people, especially people who live in rural communities or they don't have a local polymer clay club or a local beading club. So I know that the internet is a valuable tool, and it's super handy for that, especially with the democratization of information and education. I think is really handy. So anyways, I think I've made enough samples of this particular design, and I'm going to hand these off to William, and he can bake these in the oven while I'm going over some of the other techniques. And I think there's like a board or something that I left over there that you can.
This little one?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just taking these.
Yeah, and he's gonna stick these in the oven. There's a piece of aluminum foil, and you can put that on something, and it will be great. You can put it in this when I transfer this. I'm being a little bit careful about.
You can use the little one down there. I think there's a little one. If you need to keep
that metal one?
Yeah, there's a little glass one, I think.
Okay, there's a piece of aluminum foil.
So put that down first?
No, put it on top.
Okay.
Like you don't want the lasagna to get cooked on top.
So this is this goes right on the glass.
You can put that, or you can put it. You see those index cards? Mm-hmm. So this is a baking question. Let me see this. So we've got these index cards, and what we're gonna do is when he puts these in the oven, I don't want the backs to be super shiny, so maybe put one directly on the glass, and then the other ones put them on the paper.
Okay.
And that way they can see what happens. We're going to learn together, y'all, in real time. And if you see any cat hairs, gently blow them off.
I'll put that one on the glass.
Not that one.
Not that one?
No, that's the beloved.
Oh.
All right, here you go. All right. So if you watched the other day,
it's already heated. It's already going.
Yep, it's already ready. And so if you saw the other video, we made these impressions, and I used this blue clay, which is cool, but you can't necessarily see the details as well. So that's why I wanted to do this video today, because it's kind of hard to see the details, and they're super detailed. So yeah. All right. So we are going to, I'm going to get this out of the way, this clay out of the way. I'm going to put this stamp away so that I know which stamp this is in case somebody wants to buy it. The stamp that I use for those pearlescent white is, again, it's TB22. So if you want that one, I think that one's still available. All right. So I've got this is a very fancy palette. LOL. It's a Chinese takeout food container and top. And when this builds up with paint, then I just peel it off and start again. There's a lot of people who do things for a lot of different reasons. I like to not waste a lot of stuff, or if I don't need to have like a specialized tool, I'll just use whatever. There is something to be said about if you need to mix paint and you want to achieve certain colors, to have a white background so that you can color balance and color correct. But since we're not doing anything that's kind of overly meticulous like that, I'm just going to use this, and that's going to be more than sufficient. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create what's called an antiquing glaze. And what this is a matte medium. Whenever I'm doing kind of an antiquing, I like to use a matte medium, and that helps kind of make it look more real. Sometimes when you put like a gloss on it, the shine can sometimes take away and distract your eye from the kind of visual trickery that you're trying to create. And so I've just put a couple of dabs of this matte medium. Product. And it's kind of a pain in the butt to find this. It's an ultra matte. It's an ultra matte varnish, and it's a water-based one. Today, we're only going to be using water-based products. Now, there are some that you can use that are not. We're also only going to be using brushable finishes. Now, there are some people that will use spray finishes. I don't use those regularly. So if you do use those, then that's all up to you. I just use the things that work the best for me, and I've had the most success using brushable water-based materials. All right, so I've got this, and William can put a link for this varnish, and I'm only going to put a couple. I'm going to take a different brush so that I don't cross contaminate. Not that it matters super hard, but I'm going to take this floofy brush, and I'm just going to pick up a couple drops and put that on there, and it almost looks like milk. And I'm going to mix this, and that's going to make sure that my glaze, my antiquing glaze that I'm making, is going to be super, super duper matte. Now, a trick to this is that when you're using this ultra matte varnish, you're going to want to make sure that it's thoroughly mixed. And the easiest thing to do when you have something like this is to shake it. However, if you shake this product, what's going to happen is it's going to froth and foam and create little bubbles. So if you do end up shaking it, because it's the easiest way to distribute all of the kind of matte making kind of particles, the best thing to do is kind of tap it down and leave it sit for a while, maybe 10 minutes or so. And that's going to allow the bubbles to kind of pop. And then when you spread this on, it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little bit easier and not have a bunch of bubbles, because sometimes bubbles can kind of create a pockmark look, and it's different. And as Carla says, gloss makes it look plasticky. There are some benefits to that. If you're working with something that's kind of supposed to look like a creature that's slimy and gooey, sometimes gloss is great for that. If you are going to use that, liquid polymer Cato clay is really wonderful, and you can kind of just pour it on and bake it, and it can look like it's oozing. And you can play around with like UV resins and things like that if you want it to make it look extra juicy. All right, so there's the basic color that a lot of people will use for an antique and glaze is raw umber. I like golden paints. I feel as though they have a lot of pigment in them. I like this fluid acrylic because the way that I paint, I don't necessarily need a lot of texture. So I don't need a heavy body gel. Um, Sometimes if you're going to paint in a more kind of palette knife way, or kind of a way that is thicker, like if you're going to make thicker paintings, it's better to have a heavy gel base. And if you want, you can always get the heavy gel based medium and mix a little bit of this into that. And if you, that way, you don't end up with like 10 different things of the same color, just in different thicknesses. You can always water things down and change them and do stuff like that. So this is raw umber, and you just need a tiny, tiny little bit of this. And also, I will say that I work with these small bottles because the way that I work is kind of not the most pristine way. So if I buy giant things of it, sometimes it can dry out before I get to the bottom of it. So what I like to do is get these smaller bottles and use the smaller bottles. And that way, I'm not wasting anything. I hate to waste stuff. So these last a really long time because they are super concentrated, and they do, you will be able to work through this and not, waste a huge thing of paint. If you want to talk about really super concentrated pigments, there's a place in New York City called Kramer Pigments, and you can buy the raw pigments there. I don't know if they're still there. They used to be there when I went to art school. And there's also a place called Art Guerrera, and they sell what are called dispersions, and that is super highly concentrated liquid pigment that you can add to an acrylic base. So a thing that's this size can make like a gallon of paint, which when I was in art school, I used to work much larger. And sometimes the paintings I would work on were the size of the wall and be like 6 foot by 8 feet kind of action. And I needed a lot of paint and I was on a budget. So that was a great way to be able, and also to be able to control the pigment saturation. If I wanted something to be like this, where it was a light glaze, you just need just a toothpick top, take a toothpick and dip it into the dispersion and mix that in, and that's more than enough. But if you wanted to make it like super, super, super saturated, you put a couple more drops in and you would get like super chromatic. So hopefully that's a useful kind of trick. Now, hopefully I didn't let the stuff dry on my paintbrush. These are synthetic brushes. They are cheapy brushes. They're not expensive. I am kind of hard on my brushes, so I don't generally use brushes that are super fancy. I have a couple that I will sometimes bust out for super detail. But for the most part, I use synthetic brushes that are designed for water-based mediums. You can buy things that are like sable brushes, which are natural fibers, which are designed more for oil painting. I feel like though, if you know, that's like a $50 brush sometimes. So I guess I don't make any artwork that's fancy enough for that yet. So I'm just taking a little bit of this raw umber and I'm going to mix that in. And this is the base of this antiquing liquid. And if you want it to be more saturated, you can have it be more saturated, less saturated. It's up to you. And also the color of the base clay that you're working on. So if you're working on something really dark, I would not necessarily recommend using a dark antiquing glaze on a dark clay because it's basically, you won't be able to see it. So the idea is to add contrast. And so you'll want to add things like if you work with a light base clay or a lighter base color clay, then you'll work with a darker antiquing color. And that way you can, you can actually see the contrast. One thing that I also like to do is I don't always like to work straight out of the tube, as they say. I generally love to mix my colors because then I have complete control over the hues that I get. And also, it's like if another artist comes up to the booth or sees my work online, they don't look at my work and they say, "Oh, they use this color to make this." It's a little bit, they have to think about it a little bit more. Like, how did they get that color? And maybe that's my vanity or whatever. But I'm going to mix a little bit of this burnt sienna, which is a warmer base. It's a little bit of a warmer color brown. It's a much more red brown. And I'm just going to take a touch of this and mix this into my raw umber antiquing glaze. And it's already kind of warmed it up. So, and I'm going to work this so that it is thoroughly kind of mixed. And I'm not going to end up with a bunch of streaks. All right. And yeah. Now, if you have questions, please let me know in the comments as we go. I'm going to do my best to answer them as I go, but sometimes I don't always see things. So just keep in mind that if I don't answer it directly, it might be because I don't see it. So I've got this stamping that I made. Well, I'm going to use a different one because that one's kind of a weird shape anyway. All right. And I've got this one. So this is this one. It's a TB15. I don't know if this is sold or not. And it's one of those kind of antelopes. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm just going to take a little bit of this and I'm going to wipe it and just brush it in there.
I'm pretty sure any of those that are there are unsold.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I tried to sort them out, unless anybody's emailed here recently today.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off this brush. And then, so I added a lot in here. And I want to thin this out a little bit. And so this is, I'm making a glaze. This is a glaze, an antiquing glaze. So this is one way that you can do this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this off to dry, and then you can see it later on. Diana has to zoom in. Is that close enough, or do you want it closer?
Is the zoom working okay now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting really close. Whoa. All right. So I'm going to set this off to the side and let that dry. That's the first technique of adding color to polymer clay. Now, the second thing that I'm going to do is a dry brushing technique. And this is going to be the straight acrylic paint. And I'm not going to mix it with a medium. And I'm actually going to wipe my brush off and make sure that it's super dry. Now, this is handy if you have these kind of crunchy brushes that are, you know, that are not super pristine. Those are good to kind of get into grooves and to what's called stipple your work. So it's a flat brush. Michelle says, are you using a dedicated oven for this? I have a dedicated oven at the cottage. Here at the house, I use my home oven in the kitchen. And what I do is I tent my pieces with aluminum foil. And so you don't get... So what happens when polymer clay cures in an oven is it will off gas. And what that means is as it's curing, it will kind of release these plastic vapors basically in the air. And that can sometimes stick to the inside of your oven. And so then if you're using it, sometimes you can smell a little bit of that polymer clay while you're cooking and stuff. So the way to get around that is to take a piece of aluminum foil and to tent your piece, which basically means make an aluminum foil hat and put it over that. Or if you use, as yesterday or whenever we did it, our friend Lena, she was talking about how she goes to the dollar store and gets those kind of metal aluminum baking kind of sheets, and we'll use those. And those come with like a lid. What she does is she puts hers on a tile, and then flips over that metal lid, and that sits over that tile. But you can also save the lid that comes with that kind of container. Worry about it on gassing. Now, William just brought these out of the oven. These, if I wasn't doing a demo today, I would probably leave these in another 15 to 20 minutes so that they can cure a little bit more. And he left one to be shiny on the back, but this is probably not the best.
It didn't get that shiny.
It didn't get that shiny because it didn't get that hot. But it's dry enough for our purposes. So I'm going to show you, before I go into the other one, I'm going to get that kind of antiquing glaze and work on this like this. And you'll be able to see it a little bit more. And when I do my details, one of the things that I find that's important is I'll try to go around and twist my piece for different angles. And that so that I can see if I've missed any spots. And one thing that I'm doing that you probably shouldn't do, so do what I say, not what I do kind of thing, is to work over the surfaces over and over. Sometimes when you're working with like a glaze like this, it's important to just work it, just put one thin coat, and if you need more, let it dry and then add more. But it's a more subtle way to add that contrast. So I'm going to wash my brush out and dry it out because I'm going to do a dry brushing technique right now. So Let's see one I didn't do the other day. So this is another of those running kind of gazelle shapes. And I'm just going to take the clay, the paint, the raw acrylic paint, and just paint this on. And I'm going to use this and go into all the nooks and crannies of my piece. And then what I'm going to do is you can either take a soft cloth. I have a little bit of moisture on here, and you can wipe this off like this. Or you can use your fingertip, and that's where the oils from your fingers can kind of help take some of that residue off. So it's a little bit more of a contrast. It's a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the lighter clay. So it's a little bit of a different thing. Instead of working with thin layers that you're building up, you're working with like a thicker, more saturated paint, and then you're wiping it off. All right. And if you wipe too much, you're going to wipe it all out. So just be mindful of that. And if you get it in a place that you don't want it, you can kind of rub it off. But the problem is that it will, especially on lighter colored clays, it will stain the clay. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to do this in a different color. I'm going to work with this burnt sienna since I've got it. I'm going to rinse this brush out real quick. Make sure it's nice and dry. And then use that. Now, if you're in an area that is super dry, so what I'm doing here is fairly moist here in Pennsylvania. There's a relatively high humidity. So I can work with the paint in a different way than somebody who is in Arizona can. So what that means is that sometimes you have to add a little bit more of a medium to it, or use a different clay body now, or paint. And I don't see the paint, but it's a tube. It's called Open. I don't know if William can go down and get it.
What is it?
There's that cookie. Has all my paints on it. There's a tube that's like a squeezy tube, like a toothpaste tube, and it says Open, and it's a pale green. And I'm going to show them that. All right, so I'm going to work with this one next. And I'm going to put this on here like so on the blue clay. Now, as we all know, blue and orange are contrasting colors. They're complementary colors. And this has a very orangey red base to it. So it's gonna, it's gonna have a different look than if you you kind of have to be strategic about how you lay down your color, how you pick your colors. So that's it kind of gives it a terracotta. That's not my favorite, but yeah. So anyways, if you are in a place that has a drier place, they have what's called Open acrylics, and there it's a slow drying acrylic. So if you're in a place like Arizona or something, you can use this, and it will make it so that your paint doesn't dry on your palette before you get a chance to actually use it. All right, so we just did a dry brushing technique, and these are the samples of the dry brush. Now, an optical illusion that you can do, these kind of give it kind of an antique-y, kind of a clay look. But if you just want the optical illusion that you just want the shadows to be more prominent, and you want it to kind of, if you want those shadows, ooh, I'm messing these up. So this is this one, and this is this one. If you want those kind of shadows to pop out, you're going to use the same clay, the same color family. So this is a blue clay. So I'm going to use a phthalo blue, and it's going to have a different look, right? I'm going to make sure my brush is dry. And I'm going to take some of the phthalo blue and work it in there. And this is a way that you can still bring out the contrast, but it's a little bit different. So it's going to look more like a natural shadow than it is going to be looking like an antiquing glaze. All right. And of course, you can cover this however much you want. If you want this to be really, if you want the whole thing to be colored, you can use the whole, you can paint the whole thing. But this is a subtle way if you wanted to bring out like a scale pattern on a dragon. You may not want to just use brown. If you've got a green dragon, maybe use a darker color green and put that in there, and it's going to still have that same kind of look where it's like a shadow, but it's not. It's kind of a fake shadow. So there's that. And then I'll show you what it looks like on the the pearlescent clay as well, because it's kind of cool. Now, another technique that you can do that I am not kind of really set up to do today is, and I've done it in different demos before, is to take liquid polymer clay and use that as a glazing medium. So to do that, what I like to do is I will take dry pastel, chalk pastels, and I will use the dry pastels and shave off a little bit of that. Basically, a dry pastel or a chalk pastel is pigment that's been compressed down into a stick. So if you want to use that, go ahead and use that, and shave that down and crush it into a fine powder, and then thoroughly mix that into your liquid polymer clay. I like that Kato brand. It when it cures the clearest, in my opinion, and it's one of those ones that is really lovely to use. And then when you do that, it will almost look like it is ceramic. So you can put that on, kind of smear it on, smear it off, and the color will be all the way across, but it will be mostly concentrated in the recessed areas. So wherever there's a highlight, it will be lighter in color, and in the recessed areas, it will be darker, kind of like this, but in a more glazed look. Now you can also mix and match. So if you say, well, this is too blue, once this is dry, which you can use a hair dryer to dry it or a heat gun, you can always go back over it and mix some of this in there and take some of that down. And it's not quite as chromatic. You see what I mean?
Which one are you using there?
What is that?
Which one are you using there?
Well, the color?
Yeah.
This is phthalo blue.
This one?
It's a blue-green, and it also has a wash or a rub of that raw umber. Now, it's talking about rubbing. There are other products out there that you can use. There's a product called Rub and Buff, and it comes in a tube like this, but much smaller. And you just squeeze out a little bit of it, and then you can kind of work it in there. It's a wax-based. I believe it's wax-based. I could be wrong. But you just take that and you just dab it in there and work it in, much the way that I use my fingers to do this. And you just kind of rub it in there and wipe it off. and that's how you would use that rub and buff. So you're rubbing it and then buffing it. Uh, makes sense, right? And you can also do Gilder's paste that way. Sometimes what I'll do if I have a very kind of stark and um, much more high contrast design, because these are kind of subtle. So I won't use all of my techniques on these because they are more subtle patterns and designs. And I don't want to obscure all of the detail, because sometimes if you like do certain things on it, you can fill in those recessed areas to the point where you can't see any detail at all. So if I have one that's a little bit more kind of sculptural and has more texture, sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a wash of this color and or a color, any color. And then what I'll do is I'll take that, once that's dry, I'll take some of that gilder space, particularly the metallics, and then I'll lightly buff the top of that. And so it'll only give a slight sheen of metallic on the raised surfaces. Like I said earlier, you kind of have to be careful, because if you do have a design that has kind of a low relief with the, what's that that kind of not super, like the details are more fine and not as pronounced, you have run the risk of erasing those details. So you don't want to do that. So another thing that we're going to do, I'm going to wash this out so that I don't accidentally forget. And I've got these vintage patina paints, and I'm going to shake the heck out of this because they have a tendency to separate. You can see the pigment is down at the bottom. This is called earth, which is a brown color. I'm actually going to use a metallic. Skip it. I'm going to use this aged bronze. I should have done this beforehand, but then I was like, oh, I'll show that. This is vintage patina paints. They don't make this anymore, y'all. So, but I have this, and they've lasted for about as long. When they first came out, I got these, and I still have a healthy left over. They have another brand that they make. It's called like Ultimate Paint or something, and it's basically the same thing. So yeah, you can use that. So I'm gonna shake this up, and it's gonna be our interlude, our maraca interlude. When I'm doing a project where I'm using a lot of these, sometimes I plan it so that my niece and nephew are around, and then I hand these off to them, and they just have so much fun shaking the containers. For me, after I shake one, I'm like, so that probably means I need to like work out or something. But the kids, they just love it. So you want to involve the kids in the crafts, that's how you do it. Whenever I'm using these types of paints, I always find that they clog up. And so I always just keep a pin. This is a head pin, but sometimes I keep a safety pin in there with it. And I just use this to kind of tap that. And then in order for this not to stick and make it so that eventually I can't put it back in there, I will take this. Now, and so I also will wipe down the tips too. If I'm working with raw polymer clay, I'm always mindful of wiping down the tips of any kind of inks, and also away from my projects, because sometimes these little crumbles fall off and then they can get stuck in the clay, and then you're like, ooh, what's that thing? What's that little color booger? And so what I'm using now is I'm using this patina paint, and this is designed for metal, but it also will work on wood and on polymer clay. And there's all different kinds of products. And yesterday, or whenever I did it, I talked a little bit about Christy Friesen's Swelligant and what that is. And so what I'm doing now is I'm using this brush, and I'm kind of scrumming this into the surface of my design. And you see that? I'm taking this and I'm really kind of working this into the surface of the clay with this kind of rough brush. This brush is not sensitive by any stretch of the imagination because it is kind of scuzzy. And then the secret is this baby wipe, which I'm going to also use for my hands. But this is what's going to help take off, in theory, the topmost parts, because there's an alcohol, and the alcohol helps dissolve away some of the clay, or not the clay, that paint. So if you make a mistake and you have like the paint on the side here and you don't like that and you want it to be pristine, you can take this and you just kind of have to work it. And you can clean off dirty clay this way. So if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. This is kind of like your magic eraser. And you can kind of use that to get into there and clean up any problems. Because my fingers are kind of dirty. And if you're doing this, it's helpful to have clean fingers, I feel, when you're working with this, so that you don't accidentally add color where you don't want color to be, right? But this is a way, this alcohol base. Now, if you don't have this, you can use isopropyl alcohol and a soft, non-fibrous cloth. Sometimes there's blue, the blue paper towels. They're a little bit more expensive. I think they're Viva paper towels. You can use those, and that's a good way. Now, another thing about what these are good for is that if you're working with raw polymer clay and you want to kind of soften the details, you can always take this and wipe that, and it will sometimes soften how kind of prominent the design is. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a kind of a par bake with a heat gun and then use this to kind of soften the details. But I mean, that's another thing. I think it's fun to kind of experiment, and then you can really see the differences that you can get. So I've kind of been staying in this kind of earthy color palette. So let me show you what it looks like if you use a brighter color. And we're going to use this green gold, which is another of the golden fluid acrylics. And I'm just going to use just a teeny tiny touch of this. And I'm going to use this brush because that one's fine. I'm just going to dry it out. And I'm going to take a teeny tiny little nip of that phthalo blue and mix that into that green gold. And it's going to make it, you're going to be like, what did that even do? But I think it does a lot. It kind of makes it a little bit juicier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this light colored one and I'm going to go in there and I'm kind of going to dry brush this. Now, one of the things you may notice on these golden acrylic, fluid acrylics, is you'll see where they have these marks. And that's not just for decoration. What that does is it tells you what the kind of translucency is of that paint. So if you have something that's like this, you can almost not even see through it. But with this, you're going to have, it's almost going to be like a wash. So just keep that in mind. We've added a little bit of that phthalo blue, so that's going to make it a little bit more opaque. But so you can do like a brighter, this is going to stain the clay and make it almost like a pea green color. And you can go. Now, you can use alcohol inks, but I'm going to warn you now. I did not know this. When I first learned about alcohol inks, I was told that they were color safe and that they would never fade, and you can use them on all these surfaces. And it's like the next best thing, and you can get all these wonderful kind of watercolory effects. However, if you have them in the light, any kind of light, you are going to have problems because it's going to fade over time. So I do not use alcohol inks anymore in any of my polymer clay stuff because of that. So I don't use that. But if you're going to do something where you're going to make like a mosaic or something, and then you take a picture of that and you're going to sell prints of it, that's fine. But just be aware the alcohol inks will fade over time. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, it may be a couple weeks or a couple months or even a couple years. You just have to be aware that they will fade over time. So I don't use alcohol inks in my things unless it's for something that I'm going to take a picture of and can reproduce that way so that the color is always the color that I intend it to be and not be kind of like a faded version of that. Which kind of sucks because I did some kind of tutorials early on about staining ceramics with it. All right, so I've got this color, this bright color, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to put a little drop of this water. This is just sink water, and I'm going to mix some of this kind of antiquing glaze in there, and I'm going to go over this and kind of loosey-goosey style over that. And I'm just washing it over. And you can build up some really dramatic looks using just the paint, you know. You don't have to do all these things. These are only a couple of products. And as you can see, there's a great amount of detail and interest that you can get out of them. And you don't have to do a ton of, you don't have to have like all these different million different products. You can still have just a couple things in your kind of your toolbox, and they will, you know, do a lot of things, and you don't have to, you know, you can do a lot of different things with it. So you can paint murals, or maybe not mural, maybe you paint a small mural, but all right. So I kind of like this a little bit darker. And so I'm just going to smear this in there and then gently wipe this off. And that's working on the pearlescent white base clay. So that's that. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to add one more detail to this one. So keep this in your mind, but don't completely forget about it. All right. So while this is drying, I'm going to work on a different technique. This is taking a little bit of PVA glue, polyvinyl acetate, in case you're wondering what this is. I get this from Carriage House paper. It's the kind of glue that bookbinders use. It's an archival glue, so it won't yellow over time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this, and I'm going to use the butt of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to scoop out just a wee bit of this. And I'm going to put that there. I don't want to use my bristles because that can ruin a brush. There are things that you can do to bring that brush back to life. If you have a problem where you make a brush super dirty, you can use what's called the Master's brush cleaner, and I hate that name, but it's talking about like old Masters. It's not like Plantation Masters or anything. And this is this color. This is a quinachrome magenta. I probably said that wrong. Quinodrone, however you say that one. It's my favorite color, and I can't even say it. You know, it's like there's some words that in my brain, there's like a mental block. Like whenever I write the word turquoise out, which is quite frequently, I always have to stop and make sure that I'm spelling it right, because for some reason there's a block in my brain that says I'm probably not doing that right. So I don't know if you have those words, but and the other word that I have is subtle, because there's a B in there. And you're like, what? There's a B in subtle? So whenever I'm writing something, so what I'm using is the butt of this. You can use like a toothpick or a shish kebab skewer or something. That way you don't ruin your brush. And then you can just wipe this off with a paper towel. Make sure you get the tip, because sometimes I'll wipe it off like this and it will leave a little gumball at the end, and then you're like messing around and cleaning up your workstation and it gets all over your fingers, and then you're like, oh no. So I've got one more of these white ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this PVA glue that I've colored and work that in there into all the nooks and crannies. And I'm gonna just kind of use that to color it. Now, this is maybe not the most sturdy of finishes. So if you're gonna have this be in a place that has a lot of wear, you're gonna wanna do a different finish or seal it. Because it will wear down. So if you have something in a high traffic area, like if you have a hole that you're using to string stuff, and this is also a good reason to keep your hands clean while you're working, because I just made a gumball in there. And I'm going to use this to clean up my edges. This baby wipe. And it kind of gives it a different look. It's a little bit more of it's not as, you can use this, I could probably keep wiping, and then I just wiped away all my work. So if you want to wipe away all your work, you can also do this. I'm going to dry this real fast, and then I'm going to apply it while it's still kind of juicy. I'm going to wipe my fingers off while I do this, and then I'm going to just take this and put it in there and wipe it. Now, the glue is like an Elmer's glue. It's white, but when it dries clear. So what's going to be what remains is going to be the kind of, it's like a glaze again. But it's kind of a different, because it kind of has a little bit of dimensionality because of because it's a little bit thicker. All right, so I'm going to wipe my fingers off here. Carla says turquoise should not have an eye. That's another one that throws me off. And Shepley says, whenever I type the word sand, I have to slow down, or I will type SNAD. The SNAD. All right, so remember this one? We just did this. We did the green gold with a little bit of this phthalo blue, and then I did a wash of phthalo blue. Thanks, mixed with a touch of raw umber. And that. So I've got this, which is a color shift, which is basically what's called an interference paint. And what that means is that there are things that kind of interfere with the passing of light, which is kind of like a shimmer. If that's not what that means, and I just made that up, it kind of sounds real, right? So this is a color shift paint. This is from Folk Art. This is plaid. You can get this anywhere. You can get that at Walmart or wherever. And I just need a tiny, tiny bit of that, which I squeezed out too much. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do a dry brush of this interference paint. And I'm going to wipe off the surface. And it's going to bring out a little bit of a metallic sheen. Now, when you introduce wet paint to dry paint, especially when you're working in very thin layers, there is a very real chance that you can wipe away the work that you just did. So if you have too heavy of a hand, you can wipe away all the detail and kind of have to start over. So just keep that in mind, because you don't want to, it's kind of frustrating when you're trying to work on something and it doesn't want to work the way you want it to work. So this way it has a little bit of a shine to it. Now, if you wanted to seal anything with like a mica powder, there's a wonderful product from Christy Friesen from Swelligant. It's a matte sealer. That's one of my favorites to use because you can put that over a metallic and it's not going to kill all the metallic sheen. Sometimes if you put, like for example, if you put a matte medium, sometimes over a metallic, it will basically, like if you use a gold, sometimes what will happen, and I'm not saying it will do it with this one because sometimes I've had luck with it showing through, but sometimes what you'll do is you'll make a like a mark with a gold and then you'll put a sealer on top, and then because it's sealing it and preventing it from having that interference or whatever, it will like look yellow. It will look like, ochre yellow. It won't have that beautiful gold luster anymore. So usually when I'm working with stuff like that, I'll try to put that on last, or I will use something like the Christy Friesen Swelligant's matte sealer, so that you still have that metallic kind of sheen and you don't lose that through your process. All right. So we've done a lot of different techniques. We just had a little mini boot camp in adding. Let's take a look. Let's slide this over, and you can take a look at the different finishes. And I'm going to try to zoom in. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. Not very, but I'm going to put this and lower the camera down. Okay, so this is the first, we're going to play a quiz game, and we're going to try to remember what I did. All right, so this is the first technique that I showed about making an antiquing glaze. It's real subtle. I think that actually looks better on the blue. And then the next thing we did is a dry brush. This is a dry brush technique. This is on the kind of pearlescent, and this is on the blue. This is with the burnt sienna. And remember, that one was on sale because it has these little knobs on it, kind of like a button. So that way is why that one's on sale. And then this one was with the Phthalo Blue dry brush. This was Phthalo Blue, and then we did a raw umber on top. This. Now, if you want, you can do the whole thing. And this is with the vintage patina paints, and then we use the baby wipe to Susan says ochre. Ochre is a type of yellow, and it's kind of like a brownish kind of mustardy yellow color. It's one of the oldest paint pigments, is ochre and iron oxide. So you'll get different shades of kind of earthy, earthy reds, and ochre comes in different colors, but usually it's that kind of baby poop yellow. Think about jasper, like a really nice piece of jasper That's what that kind of color is. The yellowed kind of jasper, I'm thinking. So this is with the vintage patina paints, and I use the baby wipe to clean up my edges. I'm going to see if I can clean up my edges on this. This is another reason why it's good when you're working to wash your hands periodically. Sometimes it's good to use gloves so that you don't accidentally transfer color onto your pieces while you're working that you didn't intend. And it works, kind of. It's not the best, but if you make a mistake, this will help take it off. And then this was with the PVA glue with a little bit of that paint mixed in. It kind of has a glazed kind of look, but it's a little bit more chromatic, I think. And then this, I'm going to say that this is just, I don't remember. Maybe just the raw umber on that. Or the burnt sienna dry brush technique. And I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit. But I have a little smudging of something in there. And I don't like it. So I'm going to just kind of take this out. All right. And then, so this is the burnt sienna. And then this is, we started off with a green gold and then did a little bit of a wash with phthalo blue and raw umber mixed in. And then we did a little bit of a dry brush with this color shift green flash. So whenever it goes into the light in certain directions, you'll see more of that flash. And yeah, this started off as white clay. Now there's other techniques that you can use with something that has a more heavy relief or a high relief situation. You can put the color down and then you can take a very high grit sandpaper and lightly buff it with that high grit sandpaper, and you can sand away that layer of paint. Now, if you do that on something like this, you could sand away the details. So just be careful with that. You know, you can't necessarily add more detail back in after you've sanded it away. So just be very careful and do light strokes. See if you like it. If you want to do more, test it out. But don't do like a finished piece that you're like in a rush for a competition and then go and scrub it to all the heck out of it. And then it's like, then you're like, oh no, it doesn't have like if you're doing a face, I've seen people where they've gotten a little too heavy handed with the sandpaper on faces and they've sanded the noses right off and they look a little bit different, you know, Voldemort style. So if you don't want that Ray Fiennes Voldemort flavor, then you just have to use it real light. And if anything, try first with the baby wipe and see if that gives you the effect you want. And if you want it more aggressive, then you can use like a Scotch Brite pad or a pro polishing pad or even a sunshine burnishing cloth. There's a lot of different things that you can kind of progress up to. And then if it's really bad, you know, you can do a heavier or a lighter or a less high number sandpaper. So the higher the number on the sandpaper, the smoother it is. So if you start with a 220, you're basically going to make it, you're going to take all of it off. It's really rough and really coarse. If you work with a 2000 grit sandpaper, it's really soft and you're only just going to get the highlights, but don't be fooled. Don't be fooled, y'all. You may think it's soft like a baby's butt, but guess what? It's got a little bit of something in there, and it can take away more material, especially with this soft. Polymer clay is relatively soft, so it can remove a lot of stuff. So just be careful. All right. So how is that? Do we have any questions? I wish I had a darker clay piece that we could do a demo on. Well, how about this? I will paint this black, and I'll try to do a lighter demo. Or right, so I've got this bone black, and this is an experiment, y'all. I'm gonna put that next to my phthalo blue. It's just a tiny drop. Generally speaking, if I was gonna do this, I would start with a black clay first, and then do this. But if we want to do this demo today, I don't have any dark clay conditioned. That actually looks really beautiful by itself. Hashtag awesome by itself. So I'm just going to let this kind of do its thing and dry. And if I want to clean that edge up, I'll clean it up. I don't know if that actually works to blow on something like that, but they do it in the cooking shows, so it must work, right? So once this dries, I'll add a little bit more black to it because it's still a little bit dark blue, which is kind of beautiful. It kind of looks like lapis, so if you want to make this look, that's how you do that. What I'm going to do is, since there's a little bit of residue on this little hole here, I'm just going to take that black and just go in there. And it kind of makes me sad to paint over that kind of beautiful, deep indigo blue, but it is what it is. All right, so I'm going to let that kind of chill off to the side. I'm going to clean up the edges just a wee bit. And then while that's happening, I'll answer any questions that anybody might have. Oh, I recognize your name, Henneke. And she says, I'm really enjoying these demos. Now I want to go and play with clay. Oh, good. Michelle says, I have a lot of those words, second guessing myself. Oh, well, it happens. Carla enjoyed my comment about Voldemort flavor. Carla also made the excellent point of switching to YouTube, and she said she'll save this and rewatch it on TV to see it big. Yes, so we use StreamYard, and when we film in, how many is it, William? 1080p. For these live streams. Facebook only shows up in 720p. So if you want higher P, go watch this on YouTube and you'll get higher P.
It's standard definition versus high definition.
Standard
definition is 720p and high definition is 1080. Starts at 1080.
So there you go.
So if you want high def from Allegory Gallery, you got to watch on YouTube. Facebook doesn't allow us to do it.
Not yet, anyway. So that's a good way to see the details a little bit cleaner, and you'll be able to zoom in a little bit. So she said yesterday about how on her iPad or their iPad or iPhone or some kind of thing, they could zoom in. So when we were pressing out the stamps, it was kind of hard to see, which is why I'm doing this anyways. So that helped. You can zoom in and see the details a little bit more that way. So if you want to really get in there and look, that's one way of doing it. Let's see. All right. Cindy says, thank you. I love this live. A lot of information to process. Carla says, does sealing alcohol ink fade if it's sealed? So you can maybe do it. There is an artist that we visited out in Truth or Consequence, New Mexico, and she uses, I believe they're Dr. Phillips inks, and those are like super saturated. And she said that because she's in the desert, she does several layers of a UV coating. So she does different layers of UV coating to make it fade less. In my experience, and this is just my personal experience, is the UV coatings will help, but ultimately, it just the sun will bleach it out. So if you even acrylic paint, if you know, even though they have synthetic colors, um, you know, some colors will fade over time. So with alcohol inks, I noticed this in particular because I did this kind of painting with them, and I had a piece of paper that was kind of halfway over the painting, and it was in a window, and the window didn't get a ton of light. It got some light, but it didn't get a ton of light. And then I was shuffling and clearing my desk, and when I pulled the paper away, underneath the paper it was way dark. And then on the other side, it was still colorful, but it was a little bit more subdued. It was a little bit more bleached out, and it was not as vibrant as the original. So you just kind of have to be mindful of that. There are a couple different techniques of coloring translucent polymer clay, and those techniques are used with an alcohol ink to get that vibrancy of color and to have it mix into the clay. And I haven't found a replacement for that. I know some people will use different, I just have to play around with it a little bit more to see if I can get those same effects without using the alcohol inks. So I don't know if it's because it's an alcohol based, if that's what it is, and that's what's causing it, like like, or maybe you don't know. I think it's one of those things that we're just gonna have to experiment with and see. Have worked where I've taken straight up pigment and used that directly into it, but it's just like watercolors. If you collect watercolor paintings, or anything that's light sensitive like that, just don't put them in direct sunlight or semi sunlight. Put it in a darker room with full shade on that side, and you won't have as much problem. There are some steps you can take, like using a UV sealer. I just kind of feel like the more you add, it can kind of mess with the original recipe, you know what I mean? So if you like start adding this and that and start doctoring up, I'm not saying you shouldn't try. I definitely think that everybody should experiment and kind of see what works. And that's how we kind of push the envelope with different techniques and materials, is by trying it. Um, if you want a really wonderful expert on polymer clay, Ginger from the Blue Bottle Tree is a wonderful, wonderful resource. A lot of her information is free and accessible. She does have a Patreon, and there are ways that you can support her that way, financially, so she can continue to do her experiments and kind of myth bust the polymer clay world. I was at a ECU conference down in January, and one of the presenters made this interesting comment. She said, in the craft world, it seems like there's a lot of folklore information out there, but sometimes that folklore is just an oral tradition that's been passed down many times, but is not actually factually based. So in her case, she was talking about enamel powders. Um, One of the things that you do to get the most transparent enamels is you wash your enamels. And back in the day, and even I learned this in not that long ago, is that the small particles of the enamel would cause it to be cloudy or to bubble. And it kind of always sounded not right to me. I was like, why is it that the bigger ones are more transparent and then the smaller ones are cloudy? And what she kind of realized was that they take called it's a ball um, mortar and pestle. It's basically a ball that's made of ceramic that's rolled around and around, and it breaks up the enamel, because the enamel when it first comes out is in great big glassy chunks, and then it's slowly kind of pulverized until it's into different mesh weights. Um, and so what she realized is that some of that ceramic dust was contaminating the enamels, and that's what's actually causing the cloudiness. It's not finer particulates of the enamel, it's actually this introduction of this ceramic. Um, and if you work with liquid enamel, they put ceramic into the mix so that it sticks a little bit better, but it's cloudy. Even the transparent liquid enamel is cloudy. And it makes perfect sense. So um, Ginger does a really great job of kind of looking at it through a scientific lens, and exploring different techniques according to a kind of her way of working, but also myth busting where people are adding certain things to clay and stuff to make it softer, more squishy. And she's like, please don't do that. It's just going to make it super breaky and like fragile. And so, anyways, I digress. So, um, Julie says, I have enjoyed watching. I will join your YouTube. Thank you. And Shepley says, what's your YouTube channel name? Are these videos saved there? Yes. And William will create he's got some playlists going. So if you want to see more of like the around the town videos, those are in a separate playlist than the tutorials. And the tutorials are in a separate playlist than kind of the selling lives, because we do go on every weekday around 5 p.m. Eastern time. And usually throughout the weekday, it is a video where we're like, here, look at this. Do you want to buy this so we can pay our mortgage? And so a lot of those videos are like that. Usually the tutorials are on Tuesday, but we've been talking about maybe doing these like dual process videos where where there may be a tutorial and there may be some selling, so we'll see. It's a brave new world, y'all. All right, so at this point this dark one has dried out. It's not wet anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lighter color. Maybe I'm going to take this Titian pale green, and then we're going to use this. It's a more creamy one. And I'm going to use that to kind of work. You can tell this is new because it's not all crusty yet. So I'm going to take the dry brush, and I'm going to use that Titian green, and I'm going to go in there. and I'm gonna kind of paint this. And you may be wondering, why is he painting this a light color after he worked on a light color? And this is kind of the technique that you would use if you used a darker clay base and then used a lighter color of clay or a lighter wash on top. So it's to show you, like, if you use a different color clay base, how that'll look. All right. And I'm just using my fingertip to do this. If you wanted to do this a little bit more controlled, you could definitely use like a Q-tip. They make specialized ones that have, they make them at an angle, and they make all this thing that you can go in there and really just, but it gives you a different look. So if you work with a darker clay base and you use a lighter color on top, you'll get this kind of look. So if you work light clay with a dark, you get this look. Dark clay with a light one, you get this look. So what do you think? Two different looks, right? So it just depends on the thing that you want, how you want it to look. This kind of has like a vibe of like paint that's been weathered, like a shabby chic kind of thing. And then this one has like more of a kind of a clay from the earth or a metal, like a chasing and repoussé kind of vibe to it. And you can also use, if you want to play with like the metallics, they do have um, metallic colored polymer clay that has little sparkles kind of mixed in. And you can work on that and kind of build up that layer. And there are some other things that they have. I like to use these acrylics because they're water resistant, excuse me, which does not mean they're waterproof. Water resistant is different than waterproof. It's like those watches that say water resistant and not waterproof. And then there's ones that have diving depths, so that if you like wear your watch when you're going to scuba dive, they make certain watches that are sealed, and they have all these fancy things. William made me watch this video about how it like has percussion waves that sends it out and it flushes the water out of channels and stuff. And I was like, that sounds neat, but I don't understand any of this. But anyway, so what that basically means is if you take a boiling pot of water and you dump this in, you're going to get the paint off. If you lightly perspire on this, it'll be fine, and it won't come off. Maybe. So, it's just one of those things where it will take a lot to get it to remove it. But if you kind of play within the the qualities of the material and work within those qualities, then you'll be able to have the most success. So, like I was saying earlier, if you have a place that has a lot of motion and movement and it's going to get a lot of wear, you're going to want to do it where that's where the raw clay is in contact with the most. If you have something that is super like say you paint a face on your clay and you want it to be there and you seal it and stuff, that will help preserve it. But if you put that right next to something that's getting like a lot of movement, like in a button or something, it's gonna wear it away. So you just kind of have to think about it strategically, kind of like an engineer, but on a jewelry scale, um, and think of it that way. All right, I'm gonna wash my brush out, and that'll be that. Um, Carlos says the bronze clay is my favorite. I think it looks like antique copper. Yeah, I really like that one too. There is a gold that I use. It kind of looks super fake. I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't actually look like gold gold. but it's pretty cool. You can do some things to it. My favorite is I think that one maybe is the one you're talking about, Carla. The one that's kind of like a coppery kind of color. And that's one of my favorites as well. Because I feel like the color is really deeply saturated, and it has a lot of it almost looks like Fred Tiger's Eye to me when you kind of break the block in half. Um, but I do like there is a silver clay that I will sometimes use, and you can get pretty cool effects. It's not gonna, of course, you can do things to it to make it look like actual metal. You can use the Swelligant, which is actually the paint has metal ground up in it, and you can get things to look like a rusty can. I mean, you can make it look like anything. I think that polymer clay, I call it the great chameleon because you can get it to have different looks fairly easily. A couple of painting techniques, and you can get all different kinds of looks. And these are just some of the looks that you can achieve. All right. So thank you all for watching. Some of you again. I tried to do some things a little bit different than the first time that I did this presentation. And I tried to expand upon some of the topics a little bit more in depth so that you got a little bit more substance to this one because I had a little bit more time to prep. So we went from basically starting out with the raw clay. We showed how to demonstrate that, and we worked through kind of baking that. And we also talked about several different ways to add color. So we had a full evening, and we're now on our 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I think that's my hook that's pulling me off the stage. All right. Yeah. Marianne says you made it different enough that it was well worth watching both. Oh, good. And June says, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, June, for watching. And Julie says, thank you. And Henneke says, thank you. We really appreciate all of you watching. We couldn't do these without you. We do these for you, and hopefully you enjoy them. And like I said, if there is anything that you ever want to learn, and you haven't seen a video on it by us, just let us know and we can sometimes do it. Sometimes I know exactly how to do it. I just don't think of it as a thing to do it as a tutorial. So just let us know and we'll see if we can do it. And if we can't do it, we can maybe find somebody who can help show. Like, I don't do a ton of super complicated wire work, but our teacher, Jen, she does. And people have been asking for a little bit more in-depth look at wire wrapping and doing different things with wire. So that's why we're going to start doing these new kind of video surprises. I guess that's not the right word, but we're doing new video tutorials that are more specifically geared toward that. So just let us know, and if I can't do it, then Jen, and if Jen can't do it, we can maybe find somebody else. And Susan says, thank you. Thank you, Susan. Amanda says, I learned a lot. Oh, good. Carlos says, thank you, Andrew. You're a great teacher. Oh, good. I'm glad you like it and that you're able to take something away from this. Now, if you do use any of these techniques and you want to, it's always lovely to show that in the Allegory Gallery Design Challenge group. It's where we kind of hang out as a AG Bead fam and show what we've been working on using products from Allegory Gallery or techniques that we've learned in these tutorials. Sometimes we don't sell stuff directly, we don't sell all the different paints and all of the different things. We do have affiliate links if you want to take advantage of those. But you can always say, "Hey, I use this using a Andrew video. What do y'all think?" And then we can kind of work together. And I also love to see how people take things that I'm showing and put their own spin on it. I think that's really a beautiful and amazing thing when something that I put out into the world kind of takes on its own life. So I always enjoy seeing it where somebody will see one of our tutorials and then they will take it and put their own spin on it, or they'll take it to the next level. I've worked with several different artists in the past where I've taken their class and learned like the basic skills and then went on to refine those techniques in my style. And it's always interesting to see kind of that lineage and progression. And that's one of the ways that we all learn together. So hopefully, if you do make anything using any of our videos or any of our materials that are available at allegorygallery.com, you'll post those and share those. And we will sometimes repost those and help kind of boost the signal. So if you have a business or whatever, um, we share that with our followers, and hopefully they'll discover you through that. And it's kind of like the rising tide raises all boats. So thank you again for watching. We appreciate all of you out there. And if you did leave any questions and you're watching the replay and leaving questions, I'm going to try to check back on the video after it is published. We're going to get some dinner and keep sorting through our Tucson goodies that we brought back, or that I brought back. And yeah, I'll try to answer any questions if I see them. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much and take care. See ya.
Bye, everybody.